In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold.
So in a previous episode, we talked about the hot chick Rene Descartes and how he described matter, like the extension through time or the expansion through space. Well, the guy that we're talking about tonight, George Berkly, he does this thing, and he comes to this idea, this radical conclusion that nothing can be said to exist outside of the mind. And I thought that was really fascinating. And then I was like, well, I don't know. People would argue with Berkly about this, or they would do refutations to his works, and they would be like, look, all you have to do is just go and kick a fucking rock. You know, you kick that rock, you can tell that stuff exists outside your mind. And Berkly goes, Berkly says, even we'll, I guess we'll see when we're reading through here, but he talks about like mountains and fucking houses and rivers and all this stuff. But he says, so he's not denying the reality of the physical world, but he asserts that their existence consists in their being perceived. Which cracks me up, right? Because it's like if a tree falls in the woods, but there's no one around to hear it fall.
The Abracast. Occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Please note the explicit content indicator. This means that I use adult language. I do not speak in a humorless, public radio hushed monotone. I am excited and enthusiastic about the information that I present and the topics I discuss. You will hear ice rattle in my glass throughout the show. On the show, I joke about bodily functions, sex acts, religion, and politics. The topics may seem random or scattered through the back catalog. A list of show topics in chronological order is provided on the featured topic link at Advertise.com. If any of these issues might trigger you, this might not be the podcast for you, and I wish you good luck finding a show more to your liking. It's that time again. The music is low. The party is over. The fire is dying down, and all the ordinary people passed out long ago. Now we are the only ones left. Hey, welcome to the Abercast, everybody. You know, it's me, John. Hey, so we're gonna do. We're gonna be talking tonight. This is our Wednesday philosophical discussion. So I got a good one planned. I believe I got a good one planned for this evening. And just from the cold open, you kind of understand why I would dig this one, right? Anyhow, before we get on our way with that, let's see, what do I got to do? So go ahead and summon your vessel of the art and join me in thanking our Patreon and Subscribe Star supporters. Here's to you. Here's to you. Staying positive, but always testing negative. I don't have a whole bunch of bullshit to talk about before we get started. Maybe just the blog, right? So I started a blog. It's kind of like in the soft launching phase. I try not to throw around that term, soft launch. You know, I'm getting old. But, yeah, so I got a couple blog posts up there. You just go to advertise.com, hit the little section on the menu bar that says blog, and go and check it out. Let me know what you think. I think, not tooting my own horn, but I think there's some great tarot card stuff up there already. I think there's only 2 or 3 posts about my tarot card decks, but I think it's going to be good. Writing these entries for these major arcana cards have been really fun. I can't wait to share more of them with you. I'm also opening up the blog to any listeners that want to contribute. You can find me easy enough, but just maybe towers113@gmail.com. Just put in the subject like blog post or something like that. Open it up to whatever we talk about, any kind of topic we talk about on the show, I'm open to. And if you want to sell me on something that we don't really talk about on the show, hit me up, yo. So here, let's get to this. I will take all the help I can get with this fucking blog, with this show. Anything. I will take it all. So let's get to this. Nothing Outside the Mind by George Berkly. Okay, let's see. I need my reading glasses. Check. I need my bookmark. Okay, I got it. All right. Here, let's just do another one of these. So just an incidental note, I just now noticed, I got brand new ice cube trays, and you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? So it's become kind of like the backbone of the show to listen to my ice rattle in my glass, and I know it irritates some of you, so I beg your indulgence. But the new ice cubes come in a different shape. The ice cubes come in a different configuration than my old ice cube trays. And I think it changes the character of the ice rattling in here, don't you think? What do you think about that? I think I need to go and buy some a whole new set of different ice cube trays. Listen, I bought 9 new ice cube trays because I have a whole plan. I have like a whole logistics plan that goes into effect every weekend for these goddamn ice cubes. I don't know if I like this. It might take a while to get used to that. Hey, it just goes to show, when you're doing a podcast, the only thing that's consistent is change. Right, here we go, George Berkly. It is evident to anyone who takes a survey of the objects of human knowledge that they are either ideas actually imprinted on the senses or else such as are perceived by attending to the passions and operations of the mind, or lastly, ideas formed by help of memory and imagination, either compounding, dividing, or barely representing those original perceived in the aforesaid ways. By sight, I have this idea of light and the colors, with their several degrees and variations, and by touch I perceive, for example, hard and soft, heat and cold, motion and resistance, and of all these, more or less, either as to quantity or degree. Smelling furnishes me with odors, the palate with tastes, and hearing conveys sound to the mind in all their variety of tone and composition. And as several of these are observed to accompany each other, they come to be marked by one name, and so to be reputed as one thing. Thus, for example, certain color, taste, smell, figure, and consistency having been observed to go together are accounted one distinct thing, signified by the name apple. I could see that. I'm on board with this guy so far. Other collections of ideas constitute a stone, a tree, a book, and like sensible things, which, as they are pleasing or disagreeable, excite the passions of love or hatred, joy, grief, and so forth. So this is interesting because I've been working on this thing. about Hegel. I've been working on this thing about Hegel, and not the dialectic, but like the philosophy of Hegel, kind of. And one of the things, Hegel's a German thinker, and one of the things that he kind of talked about, I don't know if he actually said this or if it's other people kind of interpreting what he said or whatever. Like I said, I really shouldn't be talking about it because I've just started working on this thing. But he was like, there's power in a word, and that power is compounded within a sentence, and that is compounded within a chapter, within a book, within a bookshelf, within a library. Like, it's like the power of this one word gathers momentum through the expansion of the context it's used in. So, I mean, you can see why I dig that shit too, probably. So I thought about that when I was reading this thing about the color, the taste, the smell, the consistency, and just saying, you know, all that thing, it's just all that shit is just an apple. Bing, bang, you got it. These fucking lame ice cubes. They don't rattle properly. Back to it. But besides all the endless variety of ideas or objects of knowledge, there is likewise something which knows or perceives them and exercises diverse operations as willing, imagining, remembering about them. This perceiving active being is what I call the mind, spirit, soul, or myself, by which words I do not denote any one of my ideas, but a thing entirely distinct from them, wherein they exist, or which is the same thing whereby they are perceived, for the existence of an idea consists in being perceived. That neither our thoughts, nor passions, nor ideas formed by the imagination exist without the mind, is what everybody will allow. And it seems no less evident that the various sensations or ideas imprinted on the senses, however blended or combined together, that is, wherever objects they compose, cannot exist otherwise than in a mind perceiving them. Man, I think that's great. I think an intuitive knowledge may be obtained of this by anyone that shall attend to what is meant by the term exists when applied to sensible things. The table I write on, I say exists, that is, I see and feel it. And if I were out of my study, I should say that it existed, meaning thereby that if I was in my study, I might perceive it. All right, so here we go. Or that some other spirit actually does perceive it. There is an odor, that is, it was smelled. There was a sound, that is, it was heard, a color or figure, and it was perceived by sight or by touch. That is all that I can understand by these and the like expressions. For as to what is said of the absolute existence of unthinking things without any relation to their being perceived, that seems perfectly unintelligible. Okay, here we go. I think they're going to throw some Latin at me, so buckle up. Their esse or percepi, nor is it possible that they should have any existence out of the minds or thinking things which perceived them. It is indeed an opinion strangely prevailing amongst men that houses, mountains, rivers, and in a world all sensible objects have an existence natural or real, distinct from their being perceived by the understanding, but with how great an assurance and acquiescence soever the principle may be entertained in this world. Yet whoever shall find in his heart to call in question may, if I mistake not perceive it to involve a manifest contradiction. For what are the aforementioned objects but things we perceive by sense? And what do we perceive besides our own ideas or sensations? And if not plainly repugnant by any one of these or a combination of them, should exist unperceived. So I'm just going to add here, I don't know if he talks about it later, but I don't want to get too far away from it without bringing it up, that he hasn't mentioned memory yet. So I thought it was coming when he was talking about the table, where he's like, the table that I write on, I can feel it. But if I walk into the other room, who knows? It still exists because someone else might walk up and feel it, but he doesn't say that it exists because he remembers feeling it in the first place. And to me, that seems like it's an important bit to it. I've experienced this table. Therefore, I can add it to like my database. I can start building a pattern around it. If I need to feel a table, or if I need something to write on, I know I could walk into my study or this here trusty studio, and I know that there's a table that I can feel if I need to, or I can write upon it if I want. I think that's interesting. I don't know. Any of you philosophers out there, what do you think about that? And he might even bring it up later. I mean, I just got into this fucking thing, I made it a point a couple weeks ago, maybe even last week. I don't know. I don't read these things in advance because I like to discover them with you. So if we thoroughly examine this tenet, it will perhaps be found at bottom to depend on the doctrine of abstract ideas. For can there be a nicer strain of abstraction than to distinguish the existence of sensible objects from their being perceived, so as to convince them from existing unperceived, light and colors and heat and cold, extension and figures, in a word, the things that we see and that we feel? What are they but so many sensations, notions, ideas, or impressions on the senses? Or a memory in the mind, perhaps. That was me. That was not Berkly. And is it possible to separate, even in thought, any of these from perception? For my part, I might easily divide a thing from itself. I may indeed divide in my thoughts or conceive apart from each other those things which I perhaps never perceived by sense so divided. Thus, I imagine the trunk of the human body without the limbs, or I conceive the smell of a rose without thinking on the rose itself. So far, I will not deny I can abstract, if that may properly be called abstraction, which extends only to the conceiving separately such objects as it's possible may really exist or be actually perceived asunder. But my convincing or imagining power does not extend beyond the possibility of real existence or perception. Hence, as it is impossible for me to see or feel anything without an actual sensation of that thing, so it is impossible for me to conceive in my own thoughts any sensible thing or object distinct from that sensation or the perception of it. Some truths there are so near and obvious to the mind that a man need only to open his eyes to see them. Such I take this important one to be, to wit, that all choir of heaven and furniture of the earth in a world, all those bodies which compose the mighty frame of the world, have not any substance without mind, that their being is so perceived or known that consequently, so long as they are not actually perceived by me, or do not exist in my mind, or that any other created spirit, they must either have no existence at all, or else subsist in the mind of some eternal spirit, it being perfectly unintelligible and involving all the absurdity of abstraction to attribute to any single part of them an existence independent of a spirit to be conceived, of which the reader need only reflect and try to separate in his own thoughts the being of a sensible thing from its being perceived. From what has been said, it follows there is not any other substance than spirit for that which perceives, but for the fuller proof of this point, let it be considered the sensible qualities are color, figure, motion, smell, taste, and such like. That is, the idea perceived by sense. Now, for an idea to exist in an unperceiving thing is a manifest contradiction. For to have an idea is the same as to perceive that. Therefore, wherein color, figure, and the like qualities exist, must perceive them hence. It is clear there can be no unthinking substance or substratum of these ideas. All right.
Hi everyone, I'm Jess, and I host the podcast Shoes, Booze, and Tattoos. I like to discuss a little bit of everything that's weird or unusual, from hauntings and folklore to true crime and history. I'm not only a podcaster, but I'm also a practicing witch, so I've made sure to dedicate a few episodes to the subject and dispel some of the common misconceptions about the craft. So if this sounds like your cup of tea, you can find Shoes, Booze, and Tattoos anywhere you get podcasts. And remember that booze is spelled B-O-O-S. I hope to see you all soon. Bye!
This month in the Fulgore Correspondentia, we have an Armor of God illustration for our spiritual warfare episodes. There's an updated brief timeline of Genesis, according to me, and the Wrong Son, Wrong Blessing, Wrong Curse graphic, since we are still working through Esau and Jacob. There's a tarot card preview and also the February Abra fast schedule. We're doing another fast cycle in February. If you want to get the dates, go ahead and hit that up. All you got to do is sign into the mailing list and receive the Fulgar Correspondentia. The Fellow Craft episode is the UFO Conspiracy Part 2. We are continuing to dissect the work of classic conspiracy theorist Milton William Cooper. All you got to do is sign up for the $3 tier on Patreon or Subscribestar.
Learn more at abracast.com. Get bonus content by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at patreon.com or subscribestar.com.
All right, so let's get back into this. Where were we? Hey, something we're running real fast, so I thought I could just bullshit for a little second here. Something I don't talk about, I've never talked about on the show. It's been in the show notes for a very long time. But we have an advertise on top of the support stuff. We do talk about that a lot. I mean, maybe not a lot. I think that a lot of podcasts talk about it way more than I do, but I talk about advertisements, right? Doing ads with the show. So here's the deal. I reach out to podcasts that I listen to all the time to get podcast ads. And I don't necessarily, I never ever bring up swapping ads. I just want to turn you guys on to the stuff that I'm listening to. Now, a lot of times, maybe even most of the times, they reach back and they're like, hey, send me an ad and we'll play your ad, and that's cool. But I do it for like a little bit of karma, and also just to let you guys know sort of like what I'm listening to, right? So there's that. And if you have a podcast that, does this kind of stuff, feel free, please reach out to me and talk about it. I'll definitely play your ad. Maybe not definitely. I'll definitely think about playing your ad. How's that? But no, I'd be more than happy to help you if I can. But I also have 2 lanes of advertisement set up. If you have a book, the show notes say a book or a podcast, like I'm trying to sell podcast advertisements, but I kind of just fucked that all up. So if you have a book, a product, maybe you have like an online course, you have anything that you want to expose my listeners to, you can find the Abercast on advertisecast.com/the Abercast. And if you want something more of like a personal touch, send me your product and let me, I don't know, kind of use it and let people know what I think of it. I haven't got anyone to do this one yet, but there's another channel to advertise, and it's called Intellifluence.com, influencer /John-Towers-61030, or just go to the show notes and find these things. We're totally open to doing that. And hey, if you have a podcast you want to advertise on, you want to pay for it, I'm down with that shit too. Now, I never talk about the advertising bit of it, or I never really explained why I play other podcast ads during my break. But that's just it. I just want you guys to know what I'm listening to. Hopefully turn you on to some other shit that'll help you get through your day. One other thing that I've recently, as of the last episode, kind of talked about is I have a running playlist on Spotify. If you go to Spotify and you hit your little magnifying glass and type in Abercast, the first thing that's going to show up is the podcast, obviously. But after that, there's a playlist called the Abercast, and whatever weird song that I just bring up or maybe just bust into singing on the air, I try to catch those and put them on that Spotify playlist. So there's a lot of it's an eclectic choice of songs for sure on there. But it's fun. And I kind of started my last episode out talking about it. So I thought it'd be fun just to kind of roll with it. So I put a link to the playlist under the free additional content section of the notes if you're interested in, or I just told you how to find it on Spotify or whatever. So, okay. So that's me vamping a little bit, talk a little bit of inside baseball. Let's get back to this thing. Don't forget to check out the blog. Okay, now, for real, I'm going to get back to it. Don't forget to submit to the blog. Okay, fine. Now I'm going to get back to it. But say you, through the ideas themselves, do not exist without the mind, yet there may be things like them, whereof they are copies or resemblances, which things exist without the mind in an unthinking substance. I answer, an idea can be like nothing but an idea. A color or figure can be nothing but another color or figure. But if we look but ever so little into our own thoughts, we shall find it impossible for us to conceive a likeness except only between our ideas. Again, I ask whether these supposed originals or external things of which our ideas are the pictures or representations be themselves perceivable or no. If they are, then they are ideas and we have gained our point. But if you say they are not, I appeal to anyone. I'm fine. I work down here all day, but as soon as I hit that record button, man, my nose just starts going. I don't know what it is. I appeal to anyone, whether it be senses, to assert color is like something which is invisible, hard or soft, like something which is intangible, and so of the rest. Some there are who make distinctions betwixt primary and secondary qualities. By the former, they mean extension, figure, motion, rest, solidity, or impenetrability, and a number. By the latter, they denote all other sensible qualities as color, sound, taste, and so forth. The ideas we have of these they acknowledge not to be the resemblances of anything existing without the mind or unperceived, but they will have our ideas of the preliminary qualities to be patterns or images of things which exist without the mind, in an unthinking substance which they call matter. By matter, therefore, we are to understand an inert, senseless substance in which extension, figure, and motion do not actually subsist. But it is evident from what we are already shown that the extension, figure, and motion are only ideas existing in the mind. And that an idea can be like nothing but another idea, and that consequently neither they nor their archetypes can exist in an unperceiving substance. Hence, it is plain that the very notion of what we call matter or corporeal substance involves a contradiction in it. Saith the Gnostic. They who assert the figure, motion, and the rest of the primary or original qualities do exist without the mind and unthinking substance, but do at the same time acknowledge that color, sound, heat, cold, and such like secondary qualities do not, which they tell us are sensations existing in the mind alone, that depend on and are occasioned by the different size, texture, and motion of the miniature particles of matter. This they take for an undoubted truth, which they can demonstrate beyond all exception. Now, if it be certain that these original qualities are inseparably united with the other sensible qualities, and not even in thought capable of being abstracted from them, it plainly follows that they exist only in the mind. But I desire anyone to reflect and to try whether he can, by any abstraction of thought, convince the extension and motion of a body without all other sensible qualities. For my own part, I see evidently that it is not in my power to frame an idea of a body extended and moved, but I must withal give it some color or other sensible quality which is acknowledged to exist only in the mind. In short, extension, figure, and motion, abstracted from all other qualities, are inconceivable. Where there are other sensible qualities are, and must these be also, to wit, in the mind and nowhere else. Put a pin in that right there. I shall further add that after the same manner as modern philosophers prove certain sensible qualities to have no existence in matter or without the mind, the same thing may likewise proved of all other sensible qualities. Thus, for instance, it is said that heat and cold are affections of the mind, and not at all patterns of real beings existing in the corporeal substance which excite them. For the same body which appears cold in one hand seems warm to another. Now, why may we not as well argue that figure, and extension are not patterns or resemblances of qualities existing in a matter, because to the same eye at different stations, or eyes of a different texture, the same station, they appear various and cannot therefore be the images of anything settled and determinate without the mind. Again, it is proved that the sweetness is not really in the sapid thing, because the thing remains unaltered. The sweetness is changed into bitter, as in a case of fever or otherwise vitulated palate. Is it not reasonable to say motion is not without the mind? Since the succession of the idea in the mind becomes swifter, the motion is acknowledged shall appear slower without any alterations in any external object. You know, this bit about the temperature thing reminds me, like last year, it was freezing fucking cold in Pittsburgh, and I'm not going to lie, I'm the dude that wears shorts all the time. I'm actually wearing shorts right now. It's pretty cold. I don't know. I ran to the ATM machine, so I'm sitting there at the ATM machine, and the guy next to me is like this, like this dude, and he's in like one of these down fucking gigantic coats and all this, and we're sitting there racing at the ATM machine to draw our money out, and I'm like, man, motherfucker, it's cold out here. And he was like, yo, I'm from Yonkers. This ain't cold. And I'm like, okay, DMX, calm down. Like, fuck, man, you're my left titty, dog. Y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here. But although, back to it, I'm sorry, but it just came to my brain. But though we might possibly have all our sensations without them, yet perhaps it may be thought easier to conceive and to explain the manner of their production by supposing external bodies in their likeness rather than otherwise. And so it might be at least probable there are such things as bodies that excite their ideas in our minds. But neither can this be said, for though we give the materialists their external bodies, they, by their own confessions, are never the nearer knowing how our ideas are produced, since they themselves unable to comprehend what manner body can act upon spirit, or how it is possible it should imprint any idea in the mind. Hence it is evident that the production of ideas or sensations in our minds can be no reason why we should suppose matter or corporeal substance, since that is acknowledged to remain equally inexplicable with or without this supposition. If therefore it were possible for bodies to exist without the mind, yet to hold they do so, must needs to be very precarious opinion, since it is supposed, without any reason at all, that God has created innumerable beings that are entirely useless and serve to no manner of purpose. But say you, surely there is nothing easier than to imagine trees, for instance, in a park, or books existing in a closet that nobody by to perceive them. And I answer, here we go, this is it. You may so. There is no difficulty in it, but what is all this? I beseech you, for then framing in your mind certain ideas which you call books and trees, and at the same time omitting to frame the idea of anyone that may perceive them. But do you not yourself perceive or think of them all the while? This, therefore, is nothing to the purpose. It only shows that you have the power of imagining or forming ideas in your mind. But it does not show that you can conceive it possible that the objects of your thought may exist without the mind. To make out this, necessary that you conceive them existing unconceived or unthought of, which is a manifest repugnancy. When we do our utmost to conceive the existence of external bodies, we are all the while only contemplating our own ideas. But the mind, taking no notice of itself, is deluded to think that it can, and it does conceive bodies existing unthought of or without the mind, though at the same time they are apprehended by or existing in itself. A little attention will discover to anyone the truth, the evidence of what is here, and make it unnecessary to insist on any of the other proofs against the existence of material substance. It is very obvious upon the least inquiry into our own thoughts to know whether it be possible for us to understand what is meant by the absolute existence of sensible objects in themselves or without the mind. To me, it is evident that the words mark out either indirect contradiction or else nothing at all. And to convince others of this, I know no readier or fairer way than to entreat what they would calmly attend to their own thoughts. And if by this attention the emptiness of repugnancy of those expressions does appear, surely nothing more is requisite for their conviction. It is on this, therefore, that I insist, to wit, that the absolute existence of unthinking beings are words without a meaning, or each include a contradiction. That is what I repeat and inculcate and earnestly recommend to the attentive thoughts of the reader. All our ideas, sensations, or the things which we perceive by whatsoever names may be distinguished are visibly inactive. There is nothing of power or agency included in them, so that one idea or object or thought cannot produce or make any alteration in another to be satisfied of the truth of this. There is nothing else requisite but a bare observation of our ideas, for since they and every part of them exists only in the mind, it follows that there is nothing in them but what is perceived. But whoever shall attend to his ideas, whether the sense or reflection, will not perceive in them any power or activity. There is therefore no such thing contained in them. A little attention will discover to us that the very being of an idea implies passiveness or inertness in it, insomuch that it is impossible for an idea to do anything, or strictly speaking, to be the cause of anything. Whence it plainly follows that extension, figure, and motion cannot be the cause of our sensation. To say, therefore, that these are the effects of powers resulting from the configuration, number, motion, and size of corpuscles must certainly be false. I will drink to enlarge corpuscles any time. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We perceive in a continual succession of ideas. Some are new, excited, others are changed or totally disappear. There is, therefore, some cause of these ideas whereon they depend and which produces a changes in them. That this cause cannot be the quality or idea combination of ideas is clear from the preceding section. It must therefore be substance. But it has been shown that there is no corporeal or material substance. It remains, therefore, that the cause of ideas is an incorporeal active substance or spirit. I find I can excite ideas in my mind at pleasure. Ooh. Well, at least I didn't do the Sanford and Son song this time. And very shift the scene as oft as I think fit. It is no more than willing the straightaway this or the ideas arise in my fancy, and by the same power it is obliterated and makes way for another. But whatever power I may have over my own thoughts, I find the ideas actually perceived by sense have not like dependence on my will. Wow. When in broad daylight I open my eyes, it is not in my power to choose whether I shall see or no, or to determine what particular objects shall present themselves to my view. And so likewise as to the hearing and the other senses and the ideas imprinted upon them are not creatures of my will. Therefore, some other's will or spirit that produces them. The ideas of sense are more strong, lively, and distinct than those of the imagination. They have likewise a steadiness, order, coherence, and are not excited at a random, as those which are the effects of human wills often are, but in a regular train or series, the admirable connection whereof sufficiently testifies the wisdom and the benevolence of its author. Now, the set rules or established methods wherein the mind we depend on excites in us the ideas of sense are called the laws of nature. And these we learn by experience, which teaches us that such and such ideas are attended with such and such other ideas in the ordinary course of things. I'm John Towers, and this has been the Abercast.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.
Hey, did you learn something? Did you laugh? Supporting me is a way for you to be a part of the Abercast and ensure its growth and sustainability. It also means I can create a normal schedule for shows and bonus shows, as well as the exclusive Fellowcraft episodes. By supporting the show, you are not only a listener, but you are a part of the show. You supporting the show gives me a way to offer fun rewards as a thank you for showing your appreciation and support for our projects. Do you have an idea for a reward that you don't see? Let me know. My supporters are my partners. I currently pay for you to listen to the Abercast. Not only do I pay the hosting bills out of my own pocket, I volunteer my time and talent to each and every episode of the Abercast. The price of books, the time and resources of reading and researching, the massive amounts of gin and tonic needed, the equipment it takes to record the shows, the time and resources it takes to create the bonus material, and the cost to maintain the internet presence. Is it worth your support? I don't know. I'm proud of the Abercast, and I feel like I'm improving all the time. In addition to creating the show that you dig and that you are excited about, I also have a full-time commitment and other obligations. So why financial support? All of the supporters help me focus my time on the quality and development of the podcast. And what if you can't afford, $1 or $3 or $10 or whatever a month? Believe me, I get that. There are many degrees of support, but if you can't support the show financially, please consider leaving a 5-star rate and review on your preferred podcast app. And don't forget that you could sign into the mailing list and still unlock a lot of bonus content. Thank you. I cannot put into words how much it means to me that you listen to the show each time I post a new episode. Your feedback, support, and love of the stories that we talk about here is what keeps me going.